Webcam microphone up close. Webcam microphone up close.
At the age of 19 in 1962, she was a...
See, but I have the files. I read this stuff at the National Archives, and I read these other things. I said to myself, how can that be possible? The brain, days and the fondle slap of choice, I don't know, computers doesn't really matter. Internet, professional wrestlers, and not Jesse Ventura style. It doesn't matter where the information comes from as long as it's real. It's hard to get real information. Because seriously, they don't want you to have degrees to together whenever I try to prove out. It's not. If you expect your government to tell you the truth, you're going to be sadly disappointed. Another one of these things.
Dear Lord, what a dirty, dirty old man, huh?
Really? You can't be serious. Is this really how you want things to be? Come on. More hooker, eruptions. Eruptions, whatever.
Like Dave Powers kind of...
Really?
Allegedly broadcast live from Pima Region 2. Within the borders of the formerly united and currently occupied states of America, we bring you the Ochelli Effect.
I damn sure know I'm an original. We have all these situations. I'd love to know why it takes 50 years, for a 19-year-old girl to eventually get up to gumption to put these things out.
And good evening all, and happy Thanksgiving, at least that's what they call it out there in the rest of the world. Oh my, this is the Ochelli Effect. I am Chuck Ochelli, your host. So, it is Turkey Day, I guess, unless you're a vegan, in which case I'm not sure what you eat. I didn't have any turkey either, but hey, not because I'm a vegan, that's for sure. I'm still a ravenous meat eater of sorts. And, hey, what are you going to do? Anyway, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I want to thank everybody who's participated in the discussion group on Facebook, which is now available for the Ochelli Effect radio show. Who knows, there may be other platforms soon where we'll be able to get things out there. I'm noticing that there's a lot of little bits and pieces of chatter on different internet websites regarding different people's appearances on this show. And it seems like I should have a whole lot more followers than I do because people like to talk about these strange things that get said on this show. So, keeping up with that, though, sort of a look into what's going on behind the scenes. Wanted to talk to James Easton tonight, who you guys might remember I brought on as the No Planes guy, regarding 9/11 and all that kind of good stuff. But he did a couple of interesting movies called 9/11: The Biggest Lie and all that. And nowadays, something new is being worked on with a different spin than what James had put out previously, but still with that great graphic artwork and the 3D stuff that he had done before. Really fascinating, visually appealing stuff. And something else is going on here where he's got a bunch of different people working on it. And so happens, looks like I might be one of them. Anyway, James Easton, how are you tonight, sir?
Oh, pretty good. How are you?
I'm all right. You do know you're on the air. I often forget to tell people they're on the air.
You do that on purpose.
Yeah, I do. You're right. See, you're calling me out. This is why I like you. Right away. Nah, let's cut right through the bull, Chuck. I know you do this on purpose because it's more fun that way, and you just claim, you proclaim ignorance later just to get yourself. I know. You know the game.
Yeah.
But here's an interesting thing. Like I said at the top here when I was trying to get the Skype to cooperate. Yeah, you've done these other films, 9/11: The Biggest Lie. A lot of people have seen it out there on YouTube and stuff. Really cool graphic work. Like I said before, I brought you on my show a ways back to discuss the No Planes angle of it.
Right.
And this was, a decent discussion we had. Minor disagreements on it and stuff like that. But strangely enough, you're putting together a much larger project now with a bigger scope and getting more input together than you ever did before. It seems, anyway. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I wonder if you wanted to just kind of give people a general idea of what it is you're doing and why.
Okay, sure. The way it works is it started with 9/11, The Biggest Lie, and the whole point of that was I pointed fingers. I was saying that George Bush is a liar, that he's involved, and because he's the president of the United States, he should take a fall for, being a bad guy. And that was the sort of the premise of the start of the movie. But I went on to explain in all detail that I had available at the time, what really happened, and insofar as it included planes, but it basically surmised that that explosives were used to take down the towers. Since then, I have learned of other methods that could have been used, but I still believe it was explosives. And at this stage, I'm 100% sure there were no planes. You may or may not have seen there's a lot more material coming out on no planes. A lot more people are starting to accept it. What no planes implies is, right off the bat, the entire thing was a fraud, and the media was involved, the government was involved, that there's a shadow government that's pulling the puppet strings of the leadership of the United States, and this is big. It's huge. Now this movie is gonna cover the intricate details of 9/11, sort of in a more refined way. I just finished doing my towers version 10. They're beautiful, and I had to build them again because I need to be able to destroy them, and that's the point of designing them this way. I needed low geometry so it wouldn't take forever to render, and I'm not forgetting about you. You're the main event at the start, and you're going to tell us the history, starting with the sinking of the Titanic, moving through various false flags up until 9/11. And because you're a history buff and you know the Kennedy assassination very well, you're articulate, you have a great voice, and I'd be more than proud to hear it in the movie. So that's a synopsis. There you go.
Oh, I appreciate that, and appreciate what you're saying. I'm not sure about the sinking of the Titanic necessarily. I've been thinking about that a bit, and I was wondering, why it is that you think that part of it is so relevant.
Well, simply because there was opposition to the suggestion or idea of starting up a usury system in America, run by sort of a group, and that basically it's the Federal Reserve. They wanted to start the Federal Reserve. Prior to that, there was a different monetary system in place. The only opposition was on the Titanic, and it sank. And it is sometimes referred to as a false flag, one of the earlier ones. Mind you, false flags go way back in history, but the aim was to eliminate the opposition so that they could go ahead and without unchallenged institute the Federal Reserve in the United States.
Right, which happened in 1913, as we all know, and of course, I'm also going to do some work here regarding the Panic of 1907, which was one of the catalysts in order to sway public sentiment regarding this. In other words, a massive stage show kind of took place, regarding putting the monetary system into effect that we're all suffering through at this moment. And, of course, this is part of the historical context that we're talking about here. So I think that this is something that's going to have to be covered for certain, but could be a movie all its own. So what we're going to do is kind of present it in a way that that'll be very easy to digest for the viewer, I think. And I guess I'm going to be voicing a good part of that, and still working on writing some of it now. So. And this is only the opening sort of, setting of the stage, so to speak, for the viewer regarding this situation. Because after all, what happens as a result of 9/11? Because here we are, not really needing to latch ourselves so deeply onto the subject like ticks in a dog, so that we dig and dig and dig on one particular area. What we're trying to do is show them an overview as to why this happened, more than anything else. And at the end of the day, it is the international banking cartels that benefit.
Right.
Of course, this is why it's all relevant. And people probably say, well, how does the Kennedy assassination fit into it? Well, believe it or not, we'll be able to go step by step here, where we discuss the quote world wars, end quote, and put this all into context to give people an idea as to how they were actually conditioned to accept the debt slavery that is prevalent at this time, right?
Right, and it's essentially your knowledge that's being employed here. I don't doubt you know your stuff, and now we're gonna run this by a few people before we put it, go live kind of thing. But no, certainly it is a general overview, and the idea is to give people a context to understand 9/11, like what led up to it, the big picture, and also what happened after. It's been 13 years and a lot has happened, and there have been many false flags, and these are undisputed by many people. The fact that Boston bombing was a hoax, the Sandy Hook elementary school shooting was a hoax. They were a means to an end. The ends are things such as taking the guns away from Americans to justify that. Up until, heck, we could even throw in every day something different happens. It's ridiculous.
Well, it seems like it, right? I mean, because, okay, a lot of people, when they put together these kinds of presentations regarding 9/11, they focus almost exclusively on the involvement in foreign wars, which is a very general sort of statement on my part. But the thing is, the United States assets, as it were, occupation of Iraq, the now still unfolding scenario regarding Syria and ISIS and all this. But this is merely one aspect, one part of the mechanism that needs to be understood regarding this afterwards, right? I mean, and I know we're not the only ones saying this, so this is no spoiler of any kind. The thing is that, if you see exactly how these types of events are being utilized in order to suppress people's individual freedoms, in order to suppress their movement, in order to suppress their choices regarding their financial decisions, their very futures are actually being mortgaged, hawked, and sold, in bits and pieces, almost as if they were the derivative bubble of the past, right? Mm-hmm. Which is still out there floating over our heads, for those of you who aren't aware of that. This was all part of the game plan. And 9/11, even if you want to sit and argue about the particulars of it, it's really kind of irrelevant when it comes down to what its true purpose was. Its true purpose was to actually affect what it is we are experiencing at this moment, regarding all of the suppressions of freedoms, the passing of draconian legislature, to applause, the absolute irresponsibility of the governments now at this point. They can do so many different things to the population and internationally under the guise of the so-called war on terror, and yet this is only one part of it. But what they do to their own populace, what they do to their own nations by this mechanism is also relevant. And this is something that, again, is skipped over a lot. Like I said, it's easy to see that the occupation of Iraq was something that resulted from this. It was easy to see that all of the criminality which was tied to that is a logical result from that. But on the other hand, I think a lot of people do miss the idea that so many other things have been done in the financial institutions, in various political ways that affect you on a very local level. I mean, the police state itself could not exist as it does without the tacit acceptance of the public, based on the fact that they need to be very afraid. You know.
Not just that, they clamor for security when some things go bad. These hoaxed up, made for TV chopping head chops, resulted in the swift and almost instantaneous, beginning of and perpetuating destruction of Syria, where last year everybody said no. Well, this time they came at us with some Hollywood effects, and Jesus, it's brutal. I mean, what's really going on here is the destruction of the Middle East. It's unfolded over 13 years, and what is left? There's Iran, and Syria is getting wiped out. They've affected their plans over there. What makes a person in America feel safe in the notion that their government isn't going to do stuff to them?
Well, yeah, that's the weird thing, because after all, what is conveniently being utilized by the people that are putting out the programming, and I do stress the word programming regarding the situation, is that we have these these terrible, horrible savages that have a demonic view of their own religion, that are turning against us because, ready, they hate our freedoms, right? And I wonder exactly how that logical fallacy is swallowed, but because, look, these guys who are supposed to be these, sort of grassroots, ground level terrorists who are involved in being freedom fighters from their point of view, that are in the desert, that are not funded by anybody, that are not backed up by anybody. They seem to have world-class facilities to be able to produce some pretty good pieces of audiovisual presentations. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Their editing capabilities up until that last one that they put out, I guess, somebody must have heard all of us clamoring for the fact that it seems as though the production values were too high, because now they cut back on it a little bit. But the head chopping, the fact that these guys are mic'd really well, they use somebody who's a very clear English speaker. It's like the casting was done a certain way. The individuals who are propped up and are the lambs for the sacrifice are selected rather carefully. It seems as though the backgrounds are pretty nice and even. There's no inconsistencies in them. All this wonderful stuff. I mean, I wonder if you want to address that a little bit, because you are a graphics guy and audiovisual kind of guy and a good film editor. You can recognize some pretty decent work there. So I'm wondering what you have to say about that.
Sure. One of the first things the first memes that popped up after showed a green screen with the guy in the orange and the guy in the black, as if they totally did it in a Hollywood studio. And then I saw how they fake, head chops for horror movies and how real it looks. Mm-hmm. But I have to sort of elaborate that these Hollywood style movies, head chop videos, were made for TV. They were made, they black out at the cutting part, and they come back with the end result. And first of all, since when is this legitimate to put on the nightly news in front of families across America. It's at dinner time. This is absolutely abhorrent. This is the media doing this, and it's not just one media station. It's all of them, and this goes back to 9/11, where I fully argue till the cows come home that the media is 100% involved in lying about what happened that day, and so it stands to reason that they'd be part of lying about this as well. And the whole point of this was to incite people to say, this is awful, this is terrible. Yes, destroy Syria. It gave consent to imaginary consent. Let's not forget, they do whatever they want. But they want to keep the sheep at bay. And so I have a friend who said the production values were actually kind of low, just because it looks bloody fake across the board, even the good stuff. But notwithstanding the fact that there is absolute bloody murder going on over there, and things to note. Okay, they're in the desert. They're wearing black. Black is like the most heat-absorbing color, so it doesn't make any sense. And second is they're wearing ski masks. Okay, why are they doing that? Are they worried about getting caught? Maybe they're actually CIA and FBI and Israeli Mossad, and they're covering their faces. And as a matter of fact, I saw a picture. It zoomed in on one guy, and he had a Star of David around his neck. So I know, most people know, that this isn't anything like what they say it is, and it's all the New World Order's design or purpose to eradicate Muslims, the Middle East, and they're doing it piecemeal. They're doing it step by step, and they're accomplishing their goals. And I just want to jump in because it's in my mind. There's a little drone video showing Gaza that was destroyed, and it's absolutely incredible. It makes my heart sink. It's so sad to look at. An entire city destroyed, and people are convinced to believe that this is okay, and it's not, and never was. And the more they ratchet things up, the more people become accustomed, and this is unacceptable. We need to rewind, show people from the start where this all started and where it has gone, and that'll reset the people's frame of mind to realize that what's happened is absolute injustice. That the government of the United States for the past who knows how long. I mean, I argue that ever since Kennedy, there hasn't been a real president, and
I agree with you there. Yeah,
it's unbelievable.
Well, let's rewind it even a little more because here's the thing: a lot of people don't understand the tactics that are involved here when it comes to propaganda. Okay, the fact that there is a need to sort of dehumanize the opponent in whatever way you want to codify an opponent is, okay. The fact is that, okay, during World War II, they dehumanized the Japanese and of course the Germans. They turned them into something less than the good wholesome American image. They made them cartoon caricatures of themselves. They sort of affixed a whole lot of really bizarre sort of things that would be completely incongruous to the way of life of the average American at the time, to demonize the enemy. And this is something that has been done, forever. I don't think there's a protracted war in history where you don't find one side or the other utilizing this type of propaganda, right?
Right.
However, this is sort of like the long con in a way when it comes to the Middle East, because after all, now it's convenient to dehumanize, the Iraqis, and it's convenient to dehumanize the Syrians, because right away you can also lump in the people in Gaza, the people that are in Palestine, because after all, I mean, they don't know the difference in the West here, generally speaking, between I'm serious though, between a Palestinian and Iraqi, a Saudi, et cetera, it all comes down to, and I know this is going to be somewhat offensive, but it all comes down to, well, it's just, a different color towel on the guy's head. That's about all the only difference they might notice.
I want to say, in general, this is a joke, okay? In general, Americans don't know anything about the world until they fight. They have a war with a country. Then they know where it is. They know what it looks like. But
used to be, yeah.
Yeah. Now they know the whole Middle East. They could probably list off all the countries that used to be countries. And anyways, I'm sorry I interrupted you.
No, it's okay. But what I'm saying is that it becomes a convenient sort of clotting agent, as it were, for the blood that's going to be let here, because the deal is that they can lump all these people together, and they're generally, spoken in whispers of as, Arab or Arabian or, Middle Easterners, et cetera, and you lump them all together regardless of their actual cultural differences, regardless of, the geographical differences in location. I mean, there are people that literally think that you could throw a rock from Gaza to hit Syria. It's not quite that close, folks. It's just not. There's a big difference here between what's going on in Palestine and what's going on in Syria. The only thing that's rather common is that individuals that do believe in Zionism are behind both. That's the only thing that's actually common. But outside of that,
you could throw a rock into Syria from Israel, and you could throw a rock into Palestine from Syria, from Israel. It's all about Israel. It's all about their expansion. They've already promised oil plots or whatever from the Golan Heights, which is in Syria, as if they own it already. They've already started building settlements in parts of Gaza that have been destroyed. It goes to show that these Israelis are horrible people. I'm not joking. Okay, these people, lots of them. I heard one guy say, oh, the Palestinians will be our slaves. Quite candidly, you can listen to on YouTube any number of senior, former government officials or current that speak to the fact that these Palestinians are less than human, that they deserve to be killed, that they target the women because they can have children. It's absolutely abhorrent. And Benjamin Netanyahu is the butcher of Israel. He is systematically and uncontestedly murdered thousands and thousands and thousands of people, and nobody in the world batted an eyelash. Because why? Because the Holocaust, because of anti-Semitism. Don't say anything bad about the Israelis because you'll be considered an anti-Semite. Well, they've been playing that game for a long time, and let me tell you, they've been playing another game, and the game that they're playing is world domination. And I 100% wholehearted about it. Mossad, Israel have infiltrated the United States government, and the CIA, the FBI, together with Mossad, destroyed the Twin Towers.
Well, it's no big surprise when we're talking about infiltration into the government. After all, it was astounding to me. About 2 weeks ago, somebody said to me, take a look at how many government officials are dual citizens.
Right.
Okay, and I said, okay, and I went and I looked, and I made a mistake at first and looked for congressmen that were dual citizens, but they said, no, expand your search a little bit. And what I come to find out is that, it's public knowledge at this point that there are people with this dual citizenship, which means that their loyalties are where? This is my question, is where are your loyalties then? You're supposed to be, serving the people of the United States government. How is it that you can also have an allegiance to the state of Israel? And I make a separation when it comes down to, Israelis and the state of Israel and Jews and all this other stuff. This is a slightly different conversation.
Right.
There is the state of Israel, which is absolutely a criminal state.
Right.
Okay. There is also what people seize upon, which is the biblical concept of Israel, which is a different subject entirely, whether you want to believe it or not. Okay, and they push this down the throats of what I believe are well-meaning Christians,
right.
In a lot of their churches, in a lot of their sermons, in a lot of their literature, that you have to absolutely pray for, believe in, support the state of Israel. This is not part of the religious game. And look, and I'm not even getting into the argument about religion because I've said it many, many times. I'm not a Christian myself. But when I see this happening, it does speak to a rather ugly undercurrent that's happening here. And it means that the churches are infiltrated just the same way that the government is infiltrated by these individuals with this agenda.
Oh, yeah. You heard of Christian Zionism?
Well,
it's a very large cult, if you will. I would like to define Zionism as I understand it. It is a cult. It's not a religion. It's not a race.
Mm-hmm.
And to say to someone, I don't like Zionism, isn't anti-Semitic. First of all, I've done a lot of research on what Semites are, and
anti-Semitic is a misnomer at best.
Totally, it is.
Go ahead.
It's a language. It's a type of language. It's people who speak a language. It's not even a misnomer. It's a what's this called? Anyway, so you have these Zionists have expanded worldwide. They started in 1850, and they basically it's a cult. It's membership in a cult, not a cult, a cult, and it formerly was for the catchphrase or the tagline was for the promotion of the state of Israel, the creation of the state of Israel. Now it's for the promotion of the state of Israel. But what these people are doing, I mean. You should know that Mossad's motto is "We will win by deception." It's that's paraphrased, but that's ultimately what it's saying. Deception? Really? You're going to lie to us? You're going to cheat us? You're going to steal from us? You'll do whatever it takes to win. So these people are not good people at all, and they are running Israel. Benjamin Netanyahu wrote a book on Zionism. Now you got to ask yourself who stood to gain on 9/11, and Ariel Sharon was quoted as saying after 9/11 that this is good for Israel, and Larry Silverstein was a leading Zionist, one of the richest men in New York City. Having owned Building 7, then purchasing the trade towers for pittance and getting all the money from the insurance. It was a scam. It was the biggest scam ever. Well, there's bigger scams, but this was a pretty big one.
Right, so much so that he actually, when trying to collect his insurance money, actually asserted that since both towers were two separate acts of terrorism, and trying to actually collect double what it was that he could have ostensibly collected regarding like a single event.
Right, and what's even more to that is that if there were no planes, he's going after the airplane companies for money, more money, I mean, it never ends. This guy is so crooked. This is ridiculous. And you know, that new World Trade Center building that's there is a blight on humanity. Mm-hmm. It's owned by this mother anyway, and he's, you know, it's so depressing. It's a monument to the destruction of freedoms in America. It's an example of, oh, we're screwed. Had the eye wool pulled over our eyes, and they won. Israel won, and they're not done. They have more things on their plate. It never ends.
Right. It's virtually the capstone on the pyramid of mind control and deception, is what it is. I mean, it's literally a monument to the Great Deception. You know, and regardless of, again, I say this, regardless of what you think, you know, look, was it thermite? Was it thermate? Was it, you know, was it planes? Was it, you know, whatever you think it was that took it down? One thing that's got to be recognized here is that it was utilized to further this agenda, which has led us into the destruction of the Middle East, which has led us into the evaporation of what was left of our rights, you know, as Western citizens. I mean, the entire Western world was essentially put on lockdown as a result of this, and very slowly but surely they're extracting what little freedoms we still had left.
And now they're going after us on the internet with net neutrality. Barack Obama wants to force through, you know, stringent policies on net neutrality as soon as humanly possible. You know, they want it all. And what is this leading to? Why do they have FEMA camps? Why do they have FEMA coffins? Why is it the Masons are carting around these FEMA coffins? You know, there's some evil shit going on. It's being done right under our noses. And to all the sheep out there that sort of make it possible, they pave the way by their ignorance and their complacency and their apathy and their selfishness, for these people to do what they're doing, because, you know, if the old saying goes, if you're not a part of the solution, you're a part of the problem. And there's so many people in America, in Britain, in Canada, in France, in Germany, that don't give a shit. They don't recognize, they take for granted the freedoms that they have or had. And, you know, you got people like the Prime Minister of Britain, who's just a rancid piece of shit, David Cameron, saying, you know, out loud at the UN, which is also, by the way, under the auspices of the New World Order, that if you even utter a word of 9/11 or 7/7, which was their 9/11, then you are a terrorist. It's low-level terrorism. Like, what? Who's rewriting the dictionary here? I mean, I thought terrorism was, you know, someone who causes terror.
Well, no, see, nonviolent extremism is now the same as terrorism, you know. So what does that lead us to? You see, that makes me worry right there, because the more that they adopt these types of attitudes, the more people like yourself and myself are going to have larger and larger targets on our backs.
Right.
You know, because you know, if you can say, okay, ISIL or ISIS or whatever is the great threat to humanity at this point, because they want to install their caliphate and on and on and on with the fairy tale.
Right.
You know, the thing is, though, is that they're trying to equate what they say is, you know, the violent terrorists who are out there out of control. They hate us for our freedoms, James. Yeah. You know, that whole thing, they're trying to equate that with anybody who speaks out regarding the actual conspiracies, and I don't mean to say conspiracy theory, because
they're bloody conspiracies, that's what they are.
But they are conspiracies, yeah, and many of them interwoven with one another, absolutely feeding upon one another and promoting one another in a really, you know, actually fairly efficient way. in my opinion, at this point. And what's happening is that even speaking about these things is now becoming just as criminal as, say, attacking people in a public place, as blowing up buildings ostensibly, or crashing planes into buildings, or whatever else it is that you want to, ascribe to that particular, terminology regarding the nonviolent extremists. The nonviolent extremists are as dangerous as they are, And meanwhile, I wonder at the end of the day, see, that's the problem, is who is the actual terrorist, right?
Yeah. I think all these people that are leaders of Western countries were never elected in the last, at least a decade or so. I look at Stephen Harper. He looks like he's Jewish, but that's a generalization. But I know he's probably Zionist is the main point with that. He staunchly supports Israel. The murder of thousands and thousands of people. This is Canada, okay? We're a peace-loving country until he came along. I wanted to say that there's they use deception. They cheat. If we want to fight them, we're going to have to sort of use some of their tactics to fight them on their own turf. What I also wanted to say was, what was it? Okay, you go ahead. Sorry.
Well, no problem. But hey, I wonder what you mean there, because when you're talking about they're deceivers, and you're not saying that we're going to become deceivers as well. At least that's not your idea going forward, right?
Well, no, you got to be good. You got to do the right thing. You got to be noble. Okay, it's not about deception on our part, but we can bend rules slightly. Okay, and I'll get straight to the point. I do not believe in violence, physical violence. I think that the word is mightier than the sword. If people can wake people up, then the people have more power than the government and can put them down. Even, to talk to the police, the people in the military, to change their minds. The power of the word is mightier than the sword. The other thing I wanted to say is, you said, targets on our backs. Well, fair enough. The reason I started this is because I cannot live in this world as it is without doing something. And you're doing something too. And, a lot of people are standing up. That is noble. That is good. By virtue of the fact that these evil assholes murder people and are destroying our world, not just with, there's the fracking, there's all these oil spills, there's the Fukushima, which I think was planned. There's, any number of things that are destroying the planet. Corporations running the show, having more power, not paying taxes, so on and so forth. It's sort of like their design is to destroy the planet so that there's nothing left for us. They're spraying shit in our air. They're putting GMOs in our food, and they're poisoning our water. They're covering every angle. We're gonna all get killed. This is what's going on. So, do you want to die now or do you want to die later? It's it's not even a question about dying to me. It's a question of doing the right thing and not giving a flying fuck about my life, but giving a flying fuck about everybody else's. And I'm not tooting my own horn here. I'm just saying that's the right thing to do. And people should be standing up and en masse and waking up and waking the others is that's I keep saying it over and over.
Well, right, because look, at the end of the day, what we're all interested in here is trying to take back control of our own destinies. It is an inevitability that we're all going to die at some point in time, but we don't need to be helped along with that process by being poisoned at every turn. There is absolutely no particular bit of being a human being that is not under some sort of attack at this point in time from these larger corporate entities which have a singular agenda. There's nothing you can do as a human being to even exist where it's not being under attack. And as you point out here, the water, the food, the air, Okay.
Those are the basics.
Those are the basics of life. Without them, there is no life, okay? So all of these things are under, a biochemical warfare state of emergency, essentially. At the same time, though, our sort of psychological being as a collective species is also under attack, and this is what I think you mean to speak to when taking up their methods. What we need to do is begin to cut through all of that pre-programmed nonsense and give people a new program. Except that this program will be all about the reality of what's around you and cutting through that matrix as opposed to simply sucking off of it, which is what most people do psychologically at this point in time, emotionally, etc. And they allow their own destinies to be dictated by this stuff. I mean, think about all the people that were screaming to enlist in the military post 9/11.
Right.
Those are people that absolutely irrevocably changed their destinies. Some of those very same people wound up, crippled, injured, etc. I know that the numbers are a lot lower than they used to be regarding this type of warfare. But then again, when they said we were going to go into a place to bomb people into the Stone Age, it didn't really require all the bombs that we brought even. Okay? There was so much more to this. The shifting of public opinion, the sort of hypnotizing of the masses, by these repetitious means, this mind control which has been put out, especially regarding the events of 9/11. I mean, you and I have discussed this several times, that no matter what type of media you were plugged into at the time in 2001 and into 2002 and ever after, you were confronted by this as a constant. Right. So it became as if it was, part of your actual, face-to-face interface on a daily basis. This was part of your reality, and this was done because they were all on the same page. They were all using the same template, and yes, all using the same script.
Well, that's what I mean by getting by employing their tactics. See, they've been planning this for easily 200 years. And you must have heard of the Protocols of Zion? Mm-hmm. So I actually haven't wanted to watch the entire thing. It makes me ill just thinking about it. But it would help if I did understand it better. But still in all, I can surmise what I can extrapolate from all of this that's happened, what they're doing and how they're doing it and what they intend to do. But the thing is that they are organized. They have a plan, and that's what we need. And when I say fight fire with fire, I mean it. If they're gonna sort of control the masses through through propaganda, if that's what works, you got to propagandize our side to motivate the good people. I mean, you may think that's a bad thing, but memes are propaganda. If they speak to political or governmental or societal situations, if you have a better meme, more people will look at that meme. So we got to beat them graphically or whatever, But what I wanted to get at is it's the sheep, okay, the general masses that are self-centered and take for granted everything and ignore what's going on because their life is more important than anyone else's. And, it's going to be one of two things. They're going to get it bad along with everybody else because of them, or they better snap out of it and join the rest of us that are awake and aware and care, because it's because the elite are banking on the imbecilic stupidity of the masses to allow them to complete their goals. And their ultimate goal is written in stone. And it's to cull the population. And they've already started doing it by killing us with all this stuff. I mean, we're not dead yet, but, this stuff catches up to you.
Well, and eventually this is going to become quite irreversible if we don't do something about it. That's for sure. And you're right that this was literally written in stone. There's something called the Georgia Guidestones, and so you can see it written in stone if you like. But the reality is that this is all part of the same agenda. And this is exactly what we're trying to combat. So we do want to take some of their tactics, but not necessarily their full methodology into account here. We have to be able to present something that is at least as convincing as what they have been pushing, through repetition all these years. So this is where the battle is, I figure. So speaking to that though, you had done these other movies. Right, and your knowledge about 9/11 and your viewpoints have evolved a bit, and things like that. And you worked with a couple other people, regarding this. And I'm not sure if this is going to be. Is this going to have a different name actually? Because I was thinking about that. If you're going to make it a different title, or if it's just going to be another one in that series of movies that you've already done.
I have two other options, but for now, I'm sticking to 9/11: The Biggest Lie 6. It's sort of like a brand name. People will recognize that, and they'll be able to flock to it at the time when we release it. I was going to say that this movie employs 12 individuals, all contributing their either speaking, narration, making music, making lyrics. Producing graphics, in your case, narrating and actually writing script. And it is, I want this movie to be comprehensive. I want people to have the full bloody picture. And so that, to a point, to the start of the Titanic till modern day. Like Ferguson just happened. That's another false flag. It was like a bait and switch. While Ferguson goes up in flames, Obama gives amnesty to 5 million illegals. It's preposterous. It's just things that go through without a hitch, and it's because the government is under the complete control of the new world order. George Bush and Obama were puppets. They do what their masters tell them, and they're unloading things one thing at a time. Dianne Feinstein is railing to get the guns out of the hands of the Americans to destroy the Second Amendment, and that's the only thing, I'm telling you, it's the only thing that's saving the world right now is Americans with guns. And I tell all Canadians, shut up, don't say that. You don't know what you're talking about. I know because most of my friends at this point are Americans, and I give a huge amount of. I care a lot because not only are Americans the last line of defense for the world, but I've discovered that they're not all yeehaws like generalization would have it. I've met so many decent, good, respectable, honest, caring people in America, and more than I've met here, and I care a lot. And it's more prevalent in America, the disparity between rich and poor, the cops being assholes, the police state. And I'm not saying it won't happen here. It's probably going to happen. Our prime minister is a total asshole, but it's really, really happening there. I was very pleased, to see the number of people standing up after Ferguson in major cities across the United States, supporting not the race bait issue, saying it's police state America. Fuck you, Obama. And that, not just in America, it's all over the world. People see what's going on.
Yeah, but the thing is that when it comes to the United States, we do wind up being the vanguard of what does spread throughout the world. If they can completely, if they can completely sort of castrate us here, they will certainly do it over the rest of the planet. That's the way it works.
Right.
When it comes to being, certain things being acceptable in other countries and things like that, generally speaking, we are the vanguard of it.
Right.
We change the social norm. We often create the new normal throughout the planet. So this is why I think we are, at this point, the most vaccinated population, the most GMO ridden population. We're on our way to becoming the most cancer-ridden population. This is all being done by design because they need to take down the United States first.
Right.
And they've already done it to a great degree, psychologically speaking. They've already got, most people behaving as sheep as it is. They've already got most people being able to be easily deceived. You look around you, there are so many people out there that are ill in one way or another. There's a great illness, in other words, in the American psyche and in the American body politic, and also in the physical beings of the citizenry. That is actually being increased incrementally over time, and this has all been done by design as well, because after all, if they can do it here, they can certainly do it anywhere. I mean, it kind of sounds like that old New York song, but look, reality is what it is. If I can make it here, I can make it anywhere.
New York.
You got it. But that's what it's like for these people, right? Is if they can do it here, they can certainly do it everywhere else.
Oh yeah, it's like a template, it's the big template. It's the biggest. Vanguard's a great word. I think that I like to say America is the linchpin for the rest of the world. If they pull it, the fucking whole world's going to go, and there's nothing stopping it. It'll be like a tidal wave, and that's why I don't promote killing people. I promote defending yourself, and I still say don't use violence, use words, and that means word of mouth, talking to people, talking about the issues. Turn off the damn TV and start tuning into social media where people are alive and real, and they're not being controlled by corporatism and commercialism and capitalism and these powers that be who have an agenda. So I implore Americans to wake up, and a lot of people are, and there's this sort of general sort of consensus. It's well over the 50% mark that not about the particulars, but that 9/11 was a lie, and that's enough to it's enough to start pushing forward, and not stop pushing. You got to keep pushing, and anyways.
Well, that's the thing. And going further, I think that this could lead to some actual solutions, because again, I throw up my hands a little bit when it comes down to this, like arguing over the minutia. Because,
right.
As I told you, that this very same thing occurred when it came to the assassination of Kennedy. This kind of stuff happened among the researchers, among the people that were interested parties. After a while, things become so convoluted in arguing about the particulars that it becomes a real big turnoff to the average individual that might want to be educated about it. If you speak to the larger picture and you get to the big picture of the event, you might be able to move people a lot better. And of course, everything always winds up descending right back into these arguments. But when it comes to the 9/11 situation, in only the 13 years that have followed, we're still confronted by the same sort of methodology that was utilized to shut down anything meaningful coming out of the JFK debate. But here's the thing, a half a century later, we probably don't have the means anymore to lay our hands on the people responsible, really, because the majority of them are gone. They're off of this planet. But the people that perpetrated 9/11 are still here.
Yes. Let's get them.
And we have the means by which, if we can just begin to set aside a lot of these petty differences regarding the minutia again of the case, if we can set that stuff aside, there are actual individuals that we could probably lay our hands on and be made to be held accountable in a public arena in some way or other.
It's got to be, because the entire justice system, the executive branch, the legislative branch are all corrupt, and it has to be a court of public opinion. People have to, take it into their own hands, because the law is bought and sold. And I just want to say this. I know George Bush is involved, that he's a nefarious, evil man, that his father, the architect of implementing the New World Order, is an evil man, still alive. And that his father, Prescott Bush, also really evil man. These people are, without question, without doubt, complicit and involved in the demise of America. And they should be held for treason. But it's sort of dependent on my credibility to speak such words for people to believe me, to even act on it or do something. I've tried very hard to be credible. I try very hard to tell the truth. I think truth is the most important thing we have. And if you don't have the truth, then you have no ground to stand on. And if enough people speak the truth and tell the truth because they know it, then something may actually unfold. But until then, we're still in limbo. And the longer we stay in limbo, the walls are closing in on us.
Right, because the longer that this is accepted, and there is some sort of hopeful news every now and then. I mean, George W. Bush can't go to very many places on the planet anymore, can he? Because a lot of other places in the world do recognize that the man's a war criminal for one reason or another.
Right.
And there's a whole lot more than one reason to talk about how he's a war criminal, to be honest with you. Dick Cheney, same kind of thing. But anybody who didn't realize that guy was a part of the other side, as it were, or part of the, let's use the Star Wars vernacular for a moment. He definitely chose the dark path a long time ago.
He's Darth Vader now. Well, maybe not. He wouldn't come to Canada, because it's too dangerous. Oh, I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah, that was something I actually wanted to get into with you really quickly, because we saw that kind of briefly reported on here, but I was wondering how that played in the Canadian press.
Well, there's a lot of people that, first of all, I've met many Americans who are in complete denial, like many, and you can't argue with them because they're cognitively dissonant. They just will not accept it. They've already formed their idea. You cannot trump them. There's a lot of people like this because they were conditioned from the start. It's usually a case of who gets to you first. Well, nobody knew what was going on for the first 3 or 4 years, so that makes it difficult. But around the world, people sort of took notice and said, "Wait a minute, that there's something wrong with this." I mean, just look at how the towers fell, or there's any number of little points you can pick at.
Well, let's just start with this really quickly. I mean, we immediately respond with the invasion of Afghanistan, when meanwhile most of the hijackers, points of origin are really with Saudi Arabia.
Right.
Something is wrong there.
Sure.
Then on top of it, and a lot of people do forget this, and this is a piece of film that, believe it or not, I'm having a hard time finding, because I went to go find this recently, but if you remember, immediately after the towers fell and it was declared that, publicly, they immediately put out the press release, as it were, that Osama bin Laden was involved and that he was in Afghanistan. If you remember, the Taliban government, their people came forward and said, look, we'll turn him over to you if you present evidence.
Right. America doesn't need evidence.
Well, that sounded like a pretty reasonable request, actually. Look, we'll give you this guy on a silver platter if you're willing to produce your evidence. You notice that was never done.
Oh, yeah.
The evidence, and then, of course, people point to the fact that, even on bin Laden's wanted poster with the FBI, the attacks of 9/11 were not listed,
right.
For his supposed crimes that he was wanted for. It's a whole very strange thing, but people around the world did take notice of this kind of stuff. Like, wait a minute, they offered to turn the guy over to you, and your response was, nah, we'll just come in there with our military assets and, bomb you back into the Stone Age, which, like I said before, was not a huge leap for them to get from one place to another. I mean, really, when you look at Afghanistan, what were they bombing?
They're trying to get it, the military, the Taliban in the mountains, but it's in Afghanistan. It's the largest opium fields in the world, and who's in Afghanistan right now?
Oh, but see, now you've gone into crazy conspiracy theory, because after all, it just so happens that the Taliban regime had reduced and were burning poppy fields and stuff like this. But after our invasion, occupation, et cetera, all of a sudden, the production went back into full swing again, and they're back to producing 90% of the world's heroin, I think it is.
The CIA.
That's an odd thing that happens there. At the very same time that we're supporting death squads in South America, we see an illicit cocaine problem that's prolific. Previous to that, when we were in Vietnam, there was this thing called the Golden Triangle.
Okay.
That was not too far from where our troops were supposed to be, and gee, isn't it strange how the importation of opium via the illicit street use of heroin and stuff like that exploded during the Vietnam War? That's kind of odd, James, but that sounds like one of those, kooky coincidences.
Yeah, you're a conspiracy theorist. I don't think you should be telling this to people.
You're right. It is one of those crazy things. Like I said, the one day, if you believe that, I'll tell you about how I beat the Easter Bunny at a game of pool the other day and, won myself some golden eggs. But, but isn't that coincidental and just part of the equation? Of course,
it's coincidence.
Yeah, look, and now we'll speak seriously about this. It's obviously not the sole catalyst for why it is we did what we did.
Well, there's a pipeline, and building military bases there, and leapfrogging from one country to the next, and building bases, and basically all resulting in the destruction of Iran.
Well, and it was another odd sort of thing which never came to fruition was, I don't know if you recall this, but remember part of the justification for those that didn't necessarily, hate all the towelheads and everything else and figured that we should turn it into a glass parking lot. I remember that being one of the big things that was being passed around, among the populace. It should all be turned into a big glass parking lot, which means,
nuke.
We should nuke the whole thing. One of the reasons why this was so acceptable and everything else was, hey, at the end of the day, we'll also get cheaper gas prices.
Yeah. Right.
I'm looking for those guys that used to say that now because I'm wondering what they have to say about what happened afterwards. Because, see, here's the fun part. It was not even above $1.50 before we went there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and ostensibly, if we're occupying, controlling, having say-so over, being able to exert influence, as it were, over all of these oil-producing nations over there, you would think that somehow or other we might cut ourselves a better deal.
Right.
And therefore get the consumer, you know, dirt cheap gasoline. I mean, why it isn't 25 cents a gallon almost at this point? Oh, I'm sorry, that's right. It would have to be 25 cents plus the taxes and all that, which are more than 25 cents a gallon on average in every state, state to state. But anyway, the thing is that we never did get that better deal for our heating oil. We never did get that better deal for our gasoline. Strangely enough, huh?
Right, and the oil companies have record profits for the last few years.
Oh,
record
well,
profits.
Past decade minimally, they've been doing nothing but, and even during the harshest of financial times in 2008, you know, in recent history anyway, in 2008 when we saw that huge crash, a tremendous amount of problems throughout the economy, which, you know, are still unceasing at this point, regardless of what they tell you about the, quote, recovery, end quote. You know, all of that nonsense was going on then, but I'll tell you who was doing really, really well was, you know, your friends at ExxonMobil, your friends at BP, your friends at, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. None of these oil companies suffered.
No.
You know, we did, because everything went up based on the cost of fuel. You know, and if you don't believe me about that, then check into, you know, they started adding fuel costs to deliveries for items like groceries. So all of a sudden, what gasoline costs really affects what your bread costs.
Right.
You know what I mean? In a very real and direct way, not in this sort of possibility it has to be factored in later on. No, there was that, plus the additional strain that's being put on the individuals who are in charge of shipping these goods. They had to pay, you know, greater transportation costs, which are being passed along to the consumer, right? So all of this unfolded, and we never got a better deal. We never got a better deal. We never got a recovery. The only reason why there's less unemployment at this point is because people have dropped off statistically. You know, all of this stuff going on, and still all we're doing is spending millions of dollars a day to occupy, you know, different areas of the world where we don't really belong. And the funny thing is that even among the sheep who understand that this has been a raw deal, they still sit there and say stuff like, well, there's no way our government would do this kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah. They got their heads in the sand.
I can't. It's like, even though you show them that the government is rotten,
yeah,
they might be able to wrap their minds around the evil Muslim in the Oval Office. You know,
it's too easy. It's too easy. It's like they don't understand these people. They have towels on their heads. They speak a different language. They have a different religion. You know, I don't like them because I don't understand them. And that's pretty lame. I mean, that's like very ignorant and low education and low intelligence. And unfortunately, you know, that they're the product by design of the U.S. government to dumb down the American people over the last 30 years or so. I mean, there was a time when Americans were just as smart as everybody else, but they've really dumbed the American population down through taking away music and art and just by public school teachers being, you know, revamped and redesigned to this Common Core bullshit.
Common Core, there you go. And even worse than that, there was only a couple of decades ago, James, and I know this seems unbelievable when you look at the landscape now, but the United States was actually like leaders in innovation, in production. We produced things which we don't anymore. We actually had people that were aspiring to do, revolutionary things scientifically in the areas of literature, culture, art, all of these areas. We were seen again as leaders because we were innovative, we were interesting, we were free thinkers ostensibly. We were,
every major, innovative invention thing, almost every one of them has come out of the States. It is the powerhouse of the 20th century to revolutionize the entire friggin' world. I mean, everybody in the world uses products that the Americans built, designed, starting with the car, mass produced by Henry Ford. But I wanted to jump back to these defense contractors, the corporations that, like Halliburton and so on, that totally profited from war, and they're still profiting. And it's a machine that makes money for these corporations, and it's coming out of the pockets of the taxpayer. And the war is justified by the president, by the administration, by assholes like John McCain or Lindsey Graham. I hate that guy. To fight war unendingly. It's been 10 years. 10 years of war. When was the last time this went on, like full scale? There was Vietnam, but you could argue that was for the same reasons. Mm-hmm. It's no mystery that war is a machine that builds the economy, but in this case, who stands to gain? It's these corporations, these dark, evil corporations. And what you have now are defense contractors, okay? So Buddy comes back from Iraq, and he can't get a job. He's got PTSD. He's not doing well, and but he gets a job with Blackwater or whatever, and they pay well. And Blackwater, they're subject to maybe some rules and regulations, but they're not held to account by the government per se. They're a company. They're not. It's almost like they're mercenaries, and that is illegal in the Geneva Convention. So is using CS gas on crowds in America. That's illegal. So they're breaking laws, and they're breaking rules, and this is not being checked because the systems of the checks and balances are not there anymore.
Well, here's what it comes down to. The people that are supposed to be leaders, the Barack Obamas, the John McCains, the whatevers, out there, the lesser names that you may not know so well, but they might be representatives in your particular area or your particular state or whatever else. They're no longer leaders of any kind. What they are is pitchmen for the corporate interests, and one of the greatest corporate interests is the military contractors, which are the most easy to track of the arms of the military industrial complex. I mean, the fact that there are these contractors who are supposedly private sector elements now involved in our military actions is no big shock. But at the same time, it is really a bizarre world because it's no longer the concept of we rally as a nation and therefore fight as a nation. It's a matter of, I'm going to pitch the next great move on behalf of my people at whatever, because I'm going to get a kickback, because I'm going to get a job later, because I'm going to get, so on and so forth. But that's all they do now. It's not even a matter of it's a sideline. That's literally what it is they're there for. I mean, like Barack Obama, people blame him for having this thought and that thought and the third thought, and I argue with him all the time because none of these thoughts are his. Right. He's merely doing his job as a pitchman. Right. Now, who does he work for? Well, when you got to get your approval at Bilderberg in order to go get your job, well, it kind of gives you an idea, doesn't it?
Right.
I mean, this is not, it doesn't seem like very tough, mathematically to me to kind of understand where these things come from, to extrapolate what the root of the problem is. But for some reason, to the sleepwalkers out there, they still think, well, no, what he does is he represents the liberals. He doesn't even represent the walking in lockstep liberals. It's not what he's about. He's representing the corporation that backs him, and the corporation that literally created him as a product to be sold to those people who believe themselves to be liberals. Even though anybody who does count themselves in the liberal category anymore is no longer anything remotely recognizable next to what the word liberal actually means, and conservative the same way, this is the same way it goes. Now, he happens to be the pitchman for those particular types of interest, but only on paper. The reality is that he is the pitchman for exactly these types of interests. I think it's funny that I saw something passed along recently about another reminder that this was the president who received the Nobel Peace Prize. Interesting guy to be given the Nobel Peace Prize, don't you think?
It's a joke. It's an absolute farce. After they did that, it's just like, who cares about the fucking Nobel Peace Prize? They're retarded. They don't know what they're doing. It's maybe for science and technology, but forget it. Obama has desecrated not just peace, but the intellect of people. We've all been had, and the sooner people realize it, the better. And I want to say a couple of quick things. Okay, so December 24th, I believe, is the date when the UN applies their new policy of it's sort of like anti-gun worldwide. I have to look that up to be sure. I saw that online, and I just want to make sure. But I know that they're coming up with their own sort of Patriot Act for the world. And the other thing was when, and it's not if, it's when the majority of people, the critical mass, comes together with the recognition that 9/11 was a lie. And it's really the capstone of all things, the keystone of all of this, is that if 9/11 is exposed raw, then we have to contend with their counter plan, because they've planned it way in advance. In my movie on 9/11, The Biggest Lie, I said, George Bush knows he's the bad guy. People are going to find out, and when you go to get him, you're going to have a hard time, because they already planned for it. They know they're going to be coming for him. So people have to be conscientious of a counterstrike, a counter-strike, and I honestly don't see any way out of this without violence, because the American government, the rogue American government, will employ the military and the defense contractors and bad guys from other countries to start systematically pulling a Gestapo Nazi Germany on the entire United States to take the weapons away, and B, kill anyone who will not surrender their weapons.
And this is part of the reason why the supposed peace officers that we used to have are being converted into the brown shirts, essentially, if you want to use that particular
fair enough
census. This is why this is happening. This is the why of the extension of violence has gone on. This is why it has been exacerbated to the degree it has been. I mean, you're talking about dogs being shot all the time, police being let off. Like, there was no big surprise that when it came to Ferguson that this guy was not going to be indicted. And I still say that we don't know the full story there. It is possible that that there may have been more to the story than what we saw, but at the same time, it gives them a perfect opportunity to once again endorse the use of lethal force on somebody who didn't do something that was commensurate with the reception of capital punishment. It's that simple. I mean, regardless of what the kid did or did not do, or was he involved in, or did he rob the cigars, and did he physically go after the cop unarmed and all this other stuff, it doesn't quite rise to the level of execution.
Yeah, there's no good reason for it. I always say to people, there's no reason to kill anyone. Don't kill people. It's not only wrong and evil and bad and all that stuff. It's all those things. But I mean, the Mike, yeah, I fully 100% agree with you. There was no question in my mind the guy would walk. I mean, as if they're gonna, the police are gonna police their own and not let him walk. And it's kind of funny how they didn't indict him, and he murdered someone, he killed someone. Anyway, I also wanted to say about the Ferguson thing is that I was on the air with a friend of mine who lives in St. Louis, and he was paying attention to all the feeds and the TV and everything, and they let it burn. They let that that town burn before they did anything. They wanted the carnage to show on TV. And I did a show last night, and I was really angry because the media didn't do any coverage of the protests in Ferguson yesterday because there was no carnage. There's nothing, there's no moneymaker shot. There's no...
if it bleeds, it leads, man. That's the only way that it works. So, if there's no bloodshed, there's nothing to be read.
That is totally illegitimate. It is wrong. It is wrong. There's systemic problems with the way people see things, not just in the United States. It's in the world. It's the way that the system was set up from the get-go in the 50s when the TV came out. And it's like people need to take their TV and either throw it in the garbage or destroy it, or if they have a new TV, use it for your computer as a nice monitor, and stop watching CNN, Fox, and MSNBC, all those goddamn bullshit, lying sacks of shit channels. And it rots your brain. Do something good. Go outside and play.
Yeah, something constructive where you actually interact with other human beings might be preferable to any of that, of course. But that's being discouraged as well, isn't it?
Well, they want robots. They want plastic people that don't think for themselves. They're programmed, and they've done a good job of achieving that goal, and that's why it's such a big fight to wake people up, to snap people out of the matrix and into reality.
Well, absolutely, and this is one of the things that we're definitely going to try to achieve regarding this film. And we only covered like a very basic sort of idea of where we're going to go with the historical and a little bit of the post 9/11 stuff. And I think that people are going to be pretty well surprised when they see the way this is coming down, because like you said, it is involving the input of a dozen people that have taken the time to research this, to put together their thoughts, to assemble a great many of the bullet points, so to speak, regarding the situation, regarding how it's being utilized, and and I think this is definitely a worthwhile thing. And I put it out as a question on the discussion group, only because I haven't really talked about what it is I'm going to be doing, except I'm going to be, discussing some of the historical aspects that led up to it, and showing people, some of the things that are relevant here. At some point, we're going to also touch upon the Oklahoma City bombing,
Right.
the World Trade Center bombing in '93. I mean, all of these things that were prerequisites to being able to sell this lie to the public the way it is. All of this stuff is part of the equation. So, I think it's going to be fascinating to see how you edit this together too, because I know it's coming from a different couple of different corners of the intellectual realm, let's just say.
Okay.
But it ought to be something to see. So you think you're going to stick with The Biggest Lie as the franchise name?
I might give it like a subtitle. I'll get. You said it. The Great Deception. But there's also The Greatest Lie, and but anyway, I mean, I'm throwing it up in the air. I'm just I'm going to put it to everybody to see what they think. But as far as I've been pushing it out now, it's Biggest Lie 6. I made a couple of trailers for it. They're about 5 minutes long each, and it's mostly about the Trade Center. And there's some good music that was handmade or homemade. with lyrics, and that's the thing. It's 12 people inputting. It speaks to the fact that it's like 12 people agree. It's not just me, and I think that lends a whole lot of more credibility to it. So I'm major excited about it. Today I finished working on Towers version 10, which is, I made them 10 times, and they look so good. I love the Twin Towers, and I'm very proud of these. So, anyways.
Well, like I said, it's definitely going to be visually interesting. I know there's going to be a great deal more texture in it than has been in a whole lot of other films that have been out there that have made the rounds, that have caught people's attention before. And I think we got a chance if we just get it in front of the right people. I think they'll start passing it amongst themselves, and we'll see people looking at things in a whole new way. There's also going to be some information in here that I haven't seen anywhere else. So this is definitely going to be a unique one, guys. It's not going to be the 8th version of Loose Change. Okay, it's and don't get me wrong, I like that film, generally speaking. But there's a lot of points that are missed, and a lot of things that I thought they spent too much time on.
Right.
So.
Well, because there's so much material to cover, it's going to be rapid fire, and there's going to be a bit of an emotional roller coaster. I mean, it really is. It's like you're going to see carnage. You're going to see. We're going to lighten it up a bit with commercials. I'll give you a hint. The opening is going to be a 3D living room, but it'll look very real, and the camera pans into the TV. And it's the start of the movie. And the camera becomes the TV, and eventually we'll have commercials. And these commercials will be designed in a sarcastic sort of way to satirize different things. I won't give any of it away, but it's a lot of 3D stuff, a lot of hand-drawn artwork.
Well, here's something that we can kind of say to people, which I think it's going to be the same type of thing that you already put out regarding your Monopoly game there, which I really liked, actually. I wonder if you wanted to kind of just explain that to people verbally really quick, but it was kind of amusing, but at the same time informative.
Right.
So. It was, what was it? Was it called The Game of Zionism, or was it? Okay, it was The Game of Zionism, but made out to kind of look like almost like a 3D Monopoly board. And I wonder if you want to pick it up from there and explain it to people a little bit.
Well,
that's the same kind of vein we're going in here with this stuff, right?
Yeah, it's going to be sort of lighthearted. Take a break, take a minute to compose yourself. This is funny, have a laugh, and then, back into the horrible shit. And but the Zionist board game was inspired by Zionism. It starts off with founding Zionism, so that would be like Mediterranean Avenue. Anyway, it goes all the way around the board, the history, and the last stretch is sort of like the future. And but a lot of those things have already come to fruition. So the last thing on the board is world domination, and that's like
it's like Boardwalk, yeah. Yeah, and I know it sounds humorous, but at the same time, like I said, it's kind of informative when you actually digest it, and definitely visually interesting. So that I'm kind of looking forward to these commercials. And no, I'm not talking about any of the ones that we're talking about using in the film or anything. I'm just saying that if you take a look at that one, it gives you an idea of where it might go. So,
yeah, I mean that I spent a night on, and it wasn't too hard, but the quality of it. It came out so good, and everybody liked it. So I just maybe people in Israel don't like it, but
maybe
no. But there will be that kind of satirical kind of stuff going on. I mean, I'll give an example. We're going to try to sell a 767, and it'll be like at a car lot kind of thing. But like anyway. It'll be my friend's voice. He talks really fast, and he sounds like a cartoon character. So it's it will be appealing to some, maybe not everybody. But I just wanted to say that Biggest Lie just reached 780,000 views since end of May last year, and that is almost 1 million, and that is mind blowing. I mean, that many people watch my movie, and it was never about fame, fortune, or any of that. I gave a shit. I give a shit, and this movie will be no different. And the people that are working on it, I like them. We get along well. We're going to produce some really awesome stuff. I'm very meticulous and sort of perfectionist when it comes to this. So you're in for a treat. I mean, really, it's going to be not just a treat, but like an eye opener.
Right. I mean, there'll be plenty of very important information, necessary information regarding the evolution of what happened, 9/11 itself, the post 9/11, new reality or the new normal, as it were. All this stuff is going to get covered in the film. The only thing I'm a little concerned with is how long the film might be. But I think we've already talked about ways to sort of shorten it up, and it's going to be very rapid fire. So those little commercial breaks with the satirical pieces are going to be necessary, I think, to let people sort of slow down and process what they've just endured in earlier parts of the film. Right. So definitely, I think that's going to be something worthwhile, and the cadence of the film itself is going to be pretty unique, and I think it's going to be the kind of thing where you're going to have to watch it a couple of times. And just for the record, I mean, my entire YouTube channel only has maybe 500,000 views, so the fact that you got 750,000 there on the one piece of work with focused on the one subject is pretty amazing to me as well. So and I know you're proud of that.
Oh yeah. Well, the Physics 9/11 stuff, that's about the no planes. We put that out in January, February, March. And it's got 31,000 views. So that speaks to the fact that there's enough of interest in the idea that there were no planes. And then, just the other day, I saw this movie that took some of this. They didn't take. It's there to be found, and it's like 9/11 is a mystery. You find the clues and you put them together. All right. Well, some of the same stuff that we discovered was in his film, and it's all about no planes, but it was like way better done. I'm all for promoting other people's work. That's really good, even if it means they don't watch mine. But I think people will probably watch both. But the no planes thing is really taken off.
That's an interesting way to put it. The no planes thing is taken off. What is the name of that film, by the way?
It's called Physics 9/11.
Oh no, that one's yours, right?
Oh right. Actually, I don't know it off by heart. I can tell you in 2 seconds. So go say something for a minute here.
Well, Physics 9/11 is the one that you do with Steve Grange, right?
That's right.
Yeah, and that's pretty interesting. Again, like I said, I don't necessarily agree with everything, but if you want to talk about a compelling argument, and also some very interesting work regarding the construction of the towers, the precise way in which things would have to have been done in order to create certain effects. Rather interesting in that it gets you thinking a little differently than a lot of the standard stuff that's out there. And again, well done. And I actually like the part that he was on, especially. No offense to you, but
you jerk.
Yeah, well, I am. That's true, but at the end of the day, it's okay. Either way.
Here's the name of the movie. It's 9/11 Taboo - No Plane Theory. Breaking the Matrix.
Okay. 9/11 Taboo, No Plane Theory, Breaking the Matrix. And that's on YouTube also, right?
Yeah, it's also on 9/11 The Biggest Lie. It's at the top of the page. I've left it there for 2 weeks, so I was so proud of it. I was like, this is great. So, And there's actually a whole 9/11 hoax YouTube page, planes hoax YouTube page. There's probably about 20 movies that have been done on it. And I don't know if you've probably heard of John Lear. Mm-hmm. He's the son of the guy that built the Lear jet. He's an avid aviation expert, and he's pro no plane. He doesn't believe it's possible. I know a pilot. He doesn't believe it's possible. I think there's one more thing I wanted to tell you about it. 9/11 Truth pilots for 9/11 Truth did a video with reenactments, how they feel that it was not possible, and these are a massive group of pilots all speaking with the same voice. They would not. They remained agnostic. They did not say there were no planes, but they said that it wasn't possible.
Well, that's pretty fascinating, and I kind of hope that that we'll be able to get at least one of these guys from pilots involved in the project as well, because they always have some interesting stuff to say regarding the reality behind the physics and stuff. I always point to it regarding the Pentagon, because this is another case where you have something that was virtually physically impossible from an aeronautical point of view. Look, anything can happen once. This is true. There are freaks of nature, but when you combine the fact that there has to be like 6 conditions that have to defy the laws of physics in order for an event to occur, it becomes a little bit beyond my scope of belief personally. Right. So
if you can simply say to someone, well, an airplane's made light. It's made out of the skin is aluminum, the ribs in the plane are steel, but it's not solid steel, and it's crashing into a solid steel building. So who wins in this scenario? And if you also consider that the airplane just went straight in and did not crinkle, bend, break apart, nothing like that. It just went bloop, right in. And finally, there was no plane debris. There's pictures to that effect. So where was the airplane? And quite frankly, it wasn't that hard to do. It really wasn't. It was they fooled us all with some pretty easy, basic shit.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing when it comes to this whole scenario, is that there is a lot of fakery going on, and I'm not somebody who generally screams that everything is a fake, but
how about this rule of thumb? If this is fake and that's fake, then it stands to reason that, well, probably all of it's fake.
Well, see, this is the problem. Is it? Yeah, if you do find that that some of this stuff was not real, then it stands to reason that all of it might not be real, and you open up at least that possibility to begin with. And that's part of what it is we're talking about here. But of course, when we take it outward, away from the physical elements involved here, we're not talking planes, we're not talking buildings, but when we step back for a moment and we realize that the entire narrative in one way or another has been faked, that the entire scenario, not just the particulars of the events, but what resulted from those events were also contrived, and the things that were laid out beforehand were also prefabricated contrivance as well, then where are you left? There's a whole lot of things being contrived here from before, during, and after. It kind of leads to,
What kind of argument is that, to stand up and say, well, that may be fake and that may be fake, but no, this is real. Like if everything's been fake for a long time, then why would the jet fuel melt the steel? I hate that one. Anyways,
but which is again one of the more ridiculous aspects here.
Oh God, yeah. I have a friend, a good close friend, and he will not let it go. He works with steel. He thinks he knows everything. And he's like, yeah, the steel melted, man. And I'm like, oh, God, I've been doing this for 2 years. I've done research. You've done nothing. And, people will argue. That's what they do. They argue and they don't know shit.
But see, now you've had this conversation with him a few times. What is the argument for him to say that it's possible? I mean, what is it that he says? What, the jet fuel could have burned hotter than normal? I mean, the steel was substandard. I mean, what is his way of fudging the reality here?
Well, the reality is the steel doesn't melt until 2,500 degrees or 2,750 degrees. The jet fuel fires maximum, and that's maximum. That's outside in a pool with like lots of wind, would burn at let's say 1,800 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm not saying let's say, it is 1,800 degrees Fahrenheit. You can look it up on Google. Now there's oxygen star fires in the building, so the smoke was black, and that's a testament to low burning fires. However, if the airplane went into the building and smashed into it and blew up, wouldn't all the jet fuel have blown up? If there was any jet fuel left, it would have burned off very quickly, and that's a fact. But they're saying that the jet fuel burned for an hour, which is lies. And now his argument is that if you take an 1,800 degree jet fuel fire and put it under, the steel supports inside the building, that this would cause it to bend, and by bending, it would instigate a progressive collapse, which is it's physically impossible. First of all, and he doesn't even know how the buildings were made. So it's like, come on, man, you don't. How can you argue something you don't know anything about?
Yeah, well, that is the problem. But I was just wondering exactly where he because I've heard this before, where it's like, okay, look, you guys are saying it wrong. The steel doesn't melt; it weakens, it bends, it becomes softer. And now here's what my problem is: the equation for that is still not met by the maximum temperature of the jet fuel, as far as I know.
Right.
I mean, unless I'm wrong. I mean, maybe I've read the wrong stuff, but I could have swore that. I mean, there's been a couple of variations on this, but it still doesn't get to that point where it should be even weakening it.
Look, the issue is an airplane supposedly smashed into the building, so that took out exterior column walls, pillars, I should say, or columns. So that lessened the ability to carry the load. The exterior walls on both towers were comprised of 2.5-inch thick box columns at the base, and they're minimized as they went up the building. So they're thinner, but they're still steel versus aluminum. And that the exterior walls of the building carried 40% of the load of the building. The interior columns were much thicker. They were 5.5-inch box columns with a 6 3/8-inch centerpiece. So these things are huge. They're massive. They're 3 floors high, and so every 3 floors there's a column, and it was welded and bolted to the one below, and so on and so forth. And it was put together. There's 47 interior columns in a matrix, so they're all interconnected, every floor, all the way to the top. And to say that an aluminum wing could even penetrate one of these columns is ridiculous. If an engine hit one of these columns, the engine's made of steel. Now, steel against steel is a plausible situation, but it would only take out one column. These buildings were over-designed. They were over-designed to compensate for airplanes hitting them. And the airplane at the time of their construction was a 707, same size and shape roughly as the 767, and about the same weight, about the same fuel capacity, and the overall weight of like Steve did the thing with the peanut and the bulk of the pop can.
Right.
He was trying to illustrate that their mass could do nothing to the wood. And it was wood, it wasn't steel. And in the case of the pop can, it was aluminum. So, you know, I had this idea. I wanted to rebuild the towers, and in like a smaller scale, and use like as close to, you know, approximating the weight and the strength of the metals and so on, and just trying it out. You know, fly it into the building, see what happens, and you know. The guy that built the construction chief, he died on 9/11 in the towers. He was saving people's lives, actually, and this guy was a noble guy. Mm-hmm. And he, when he spoke about the buildings in January of 2001, he said you could fly multiple airplanes into the buildings, and you know the most it would do is put a hole. If you hit a window square on, it would like stretch it, and it would make a hole, but the airplane wouldn't go in the building. It would accordion up against the building and blow up and fall to the base of the World Trade Center in a bunch of pieces. So that's the. There's also the you heard Steve say, if you took the World Trade Center and stuck it on the end of a baseball bat or something and whacked it against a stationary airplane, who would win? You know?
Yeah, well, this was what he was doing, is juxtaposing, you know, instead of the ball hitting the bat hitting the ball. Right. You know, that was the thing. And meanwhile, you know, physically speaking, from a sheer physics perspective, that makes sense. You know, what would happen in that case? There's, you know, and there is something to be said for the, you know, the whole thing. But at the end of the day, because we're running lower on time now. Okay. Believe it or not, we've almost blown through 2 hours here. You know, and I wanted to give people an idea what it was that we're working on here. Okay. And to you know, and to give them just some insights into, you know, where your thinking is at regarding all this stuff. This is, you know, although it's part of it, the no planes thing, which is what I originally brought you on my show for, I don't know, about a month ago, or I think it was, or two, I don't remember. You know, but this is how we met. The thing is that since then, what we're talking about now is, yeah, that'll be part of it, but a whole overview where this has not really been done before in such a complete way. Right. This is what is going to come out of this one, and it may be called The Biggest Lie 6. Stay tuned for that. It might have a subtitle on it. We shall soon see. But it's definitely going to be a unique documentary regarding 9/11, and I wanted to give people like an idea of that ahead of time, and let them know why it is that I'm involving myself in it and everything else, because I turned away other projects because of disagreements with people's goals. But your goal here is essentially to enlighten people as to, you know, what the true meaning of all this is, the fact that the public has been deceived and continues to be deceived for nefarious purposes, and here are some of the purposes that we can easily outline. Mm-hmm. And this is what it's coming down to, is that something needs to be done. There are people that still are walking around free and clear out there that need to be punished for this, because again, I use this phrase all the time. At the end of the day, it is a criminal act which has been perpetrated not only against the individuals who died that day, which I speak of in the utmost respect, because after all, they were victims of this, but so have many other people on a global scale become the victims of the residual effects from 9/11 and what grew from it. Including those of us still sitting here in this ostensibly, supposedly, formerly united and currently occupied states of America. Okay,
that's not funny.
Including us. Well, that's what I say at the beginning of my bumpers. So I threw it. Okay. You know, the formerly united and currently occupied states of America. Right. Yes, this is where we are, and we are suffering from this still to this day, and will continue to do so until we begin to fight back, to speak out, and to actually make a coherent argument that is at least as appealing to the masses as their lies have been. So this is what we're attempting to do.
Right.
And that's about as best I can put it for you, James. I don't know if you want to add anything else to it, but like I said, we got about 6 minutes, maybe 5 left, depending on my clock.
Okay.
I do want to get one little other thing in there, but I want to give you the last word. So let me just read this little piece here that somebody passed along to me, which doesn't have anything to do with what we're talking about, but Vince Easley passed this along to me, and he wanted me to mention that the truth about cancer, hashtag the quest for the cure continues. Prevent and treat 100% naturally. Ty Bollinger hosts The Journey. It's apparently something about 11 episodes from November 28th to December 1st. They'll be available through midnight Monday. Episode 1, Modern Medicine and the Cancer Pandemic. Episode 2, Your First Line of Defense. Episode 3, Eliminate These Dirty Dozen, in quotes, to prevent cancer. Episode 4, Your Secret Fountain of Youth. Episode 5, Nature's a Pharmacy. And it goes on, and you can find it at thetruthaboutcancer.com/live replay. Okay, so this is something that Vince is involved in and wants to put out there, and he's a friend of the show and somebody that I always appreciate, somebody who's involved in UCY and used to do a show on here called What Matters Worldwide and all that. And Vince, I read it for you because I was one of the few people live on Thanksgiving. So there you go. And but anyway, James, I want to kind of give you the last word on all this discussion that we had tonight. And sorry if we didn't get to everything you wanted to get to, but I think we covered it pretty well.
Well, I want to say that I'm going to blow some sunshine your way. I think you're amazing at what you do. You're very articulate and you're knowledgeable, and I trust your researching capabilities, and you're a major part of this movie. And I look forward to reading the script that you've got to come up with, and working with you to put the scenes together. And I have to say, this show was fantastic. It was a great outlet for me, and you asked me a lot of great questions that I got to put some stuff out there. I really feel like I expressed myself, and I'm very pleased. Thank you very much.
Well, as always, I'm just trying to give people the conversations that'll provoke thought, that'll get them to look at things in the real sense as opposed to accepting the explanations given to them on high. This is what I'm all about. And, of course, this is one of those pivotal subjects that still needs to be discussed. It is not a matter of ancient history. It's not a matter of history at all. It is a matter of current events. We are still living in the post-9/11 world. It is the new normal that was presented to us and brought to us by that catalyst, and if we don't do something about it, it will write the remainder of what future we have left. And if we don't deal with it in the right way, that future will not be something that we have domain over. And that is the important thing, and that's what I'm all about. And happy to be working with you, James, and hopefully we'll see this, by the end of the year we might actually see this out, huh?
That's right. I was hoping for December 15th, but that's just a rough deadline, so we'll see.
Absolutely, and definitely stay tuned on it, and I guarantee you I'll post it everywhere I can for anybody who's listening to me. So if you see it on the Ochelli Effect group discussion page, the Ochelli Effect Facebook page, if you see it out on any of the other little things that I can get a word out to, you will see it. And, of course, you'll hear about it on here, and we'll direct you to where you can get it and all that kind of good stuff when the time is right. But definitely going to be a unique piece of work, I guarantee you that much. And thanks again, James. I do appreciate all your time.
Thank you.
And, you have yourself a good night, sir, and we will be speaking very shortly as soon as I get myself free during the day.
All right.
All right?
All right.
All right. Have a good night.
You too. Take care.
Take care. So, guys, that was that, and I do look forward to getting it out there. Before I close things out here tonight, I do want to say I hope everybody enjoyed me being actually live on Thanksgiving. A lot of other people are not, and it's because they have big family get-togethers and things to deal with. I have my kids with me. Kim, of course, cooked today, and can't say enough about her. I want to say that. None of this stuff that I do is possible without her assistance, without her help. She's helped me to get guests, helped me to do a lot of other things over time, and I don't credit her enough on the show. So let's just keep that one in mind. And please, people, I love to hear feedback. If you guys don't like what you're hearing about, or you want to put your particular input into what it is that I'm creating regarding the historical events leading up to. And I know I don't have the chat room in front of me, but every time I say 9/11, one of the guaranteed phrases I see there is dancing Israelis. Don't worry, that will be in that movie as well as, of course, my mentions about the JFK assassination, how people have been conditioned and cowed and caused to, voluntarily admit themselves into the great matrix of mind control that is the mainstream media. And, of course, it is time now for us to be the media, not accept the mainstream. It is time for us to be ourselves, get back to being our real, true selves, and not accept the explanations of those that claim to be the authorities. As after all, the appeal to them is what destroys our individuality in one way or another. And regarding all the other current events that have occurred recently, I put all that aside tonight so we could discuss this because I just thought it was appropriate to do so. I hope you guys got something out of it again. And thanks a lot for tuning in to the Ochelli Effect on UCY.TV radio. And don't get yourself sick. And remember to be who you are. Thanksgiving!
At the age of 19 in 1962, she was
But I have the files. I read the stuff at the National Archives, and I read these other things. I said to myself, how can that be possible? The brain, pistols and the fondle slab of choice. I don't know that doesn't really matter. Internet, professional wrestlers, and not just a Ventura style. It doesn't matter where the cartoon comes from as long as it's real. It doesn't. It's hard to get real information because seriously, they